Yo, 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 we back.
It's been a long time, isn't it? Maybe we should start by explaining why we haven't done a podcast episode in a while.
Should we do it like Vox explained?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was sick, as you know, man. I had like the worst case of allergies combined with the vaccine. Oh my god, it was annoying as fuck. And I think it gave us some time to think about how we're going to do this podcast too, because we were starting off like the 1980s with the freaking intro, but you know what? Fuck that. We just get into it, you know?
Exactly. I mean, this is supposed to be something fun, just to have a weekly catch-up discussion, talk shit. It's not meant to be about trying to give people a newscast program or anything like that. So, yeah, I'm glad that we sort of got some time to rethink how we're going to do this. So I mean, I'm glad you're feeling better, man. You sure it was the vaccine that was causing you all that?
Listen, man, I don't know. It's funny, like when I mentioned to people that I got the vaccine and I immediately I got sick like for a day after the vaccine, but my allergies are still going on. I've never had allergies for 2 months. It's just a weird coincidence. Now I've got all the pro-vaccine people telling me that it's the less people on the street, but this whole fucking town is outside. Like nobody's in the street. Nobody's sitting at home anymore. Biden's back, baby. Virus is over, right?
Yeah. Listen, you fuckers. You know, I know you guys got all your panties up in a bunch because Joe Rogan was talking to a friend about why it's not necessary for people very young to get the vaccine and all that shit. But let me tell you something. You know, where I live in my country, where we have universal healthcare. So in order to get the vaccine, you need to go to this website and get your eligibility checked. And they ask you all sorts of questions. Are you going to travel abroad? Is that essential? You can't lie to that because you actually have to say that, no, you're not traveling because you want to go to Cancun and, the snort coke off a hooker's ass or whatever. Yeah. But you have to actually tell them that you have to go there for a utilitarian purpose. It could be a family matter or something very urgent.
Traveling for like free traveling is not exactly happening right now. You can travel where you want. You got to go for like government approved reasons, right?
Absolutely. So why
don't you just move to North Korea then? It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm saying is that you guys got all offended and you wanted to cancel all these people for having an opinion on this COVID vaccine. But the fact of the matter is that most developed countries that actually have universal healthcare, etc., these countries still, you can't. I'm 43 years old and I'm not eligible. I wasn't anyway up until now, maybe. I wasn't eligible up until now to get this vaccine. So you can't just say, oh, you know what, these people are spreading dangerous misinformation when the government themselves deems that we are not eligible to get this fucking thing, you know? So, yeah, so tone down on that shit. And I'm tired of seeing all these people, these so-called socialists, get on fucking Twitter and say Spotify's Joe Rogan. Suddenly the word Spotify is now included in the before you mention his name because, you know, you have to call out his employer to, hey, employee, hey, the big company guy, hey, the CEO of this fucking multi-billion-dollar corporation, please cancel this guy, please fire this guy. And then the next moment you go and talk about how great Karl Marx is and the unions and the workers' rights. I mean, fuck off. At least get some perspective on what you're doing. Yeah,
these guys are addicted to their freaking iPhones. There's no way they'd last a second in under real like communism or socialism, man.
My goodness me. Yeah.
Especially now that the lab leak theory isn't a theory anymore. That was the best part about the last month since we've been off.
Can you believe that? I mean, okay, let's first talk about Kamala Harris in the vice presidential debate last year. She goes, okay, if a vaccine comes out, I'm not taking it because that's right. If it gives too much credit to Donald Trump, she's not taking it. Is what she was.
It's always been about
saying.
It's always they had Trump on the brain, man.
Yeah, and now she's like giving people ultimatums: wear a mask forever or get the vaccine. Because now that she can, she feels that in some ways she can win the partisan politics or get some credit for the Trump vaccine. I love saying that just to trigger these people off. Yeah, so and the
funny part is like they made Trump such a third rail issue. Like, I mean, to me, he's like literally a psyop, and he's a moron himself for becoming a psyop. But the best part is, I was talking to somebody the other day, and this is someone who doesn't follow politics or anything like that, and they were like, "Well, Trump is worse than Biden, right?" And I had to explain to them in very like simple terms that he was a political novice. That guy had no legislative record to speak of prior to 2017. How could a guy who just got into the president, his first job was being, I mean, if you think about it, he's such a moron, but his first political job was president of the United States. And how does a guy who is only president for 4 years have a track record that could actually be worse than a guy who's been sitting around corporate ghoul 47 years, that somehow he ended up being this like old, like lovable grandpa? I mean, literally, like I think there was another guy on Instagram the other day, and he was complaining about, for the first time I saw like the average person, like who's not really in tuned into like the way politics the way we are, actually complain about this. He was like, well, Biden is the same. And I was like, wow, like it's finally happening. Like people are noticing that there's only so much these guys can deflect to Trump, and now there's a lot of people are hurting, man. It's not like Trump's not, that's why they have to keep Trump around. Without Trump, they just fall apart. This Kamala Harris, same thing with the border, right? She was like, remember when Trump did the wall and the airport ban and stuff like that, and they were like, oh, come here, you don't listen to Trump, and now she's going to South America and telling them not to come here. So
don't come, yeah. Yeah, it is unbelievable. She is the gift that keeps on giving that way, and it's unbelievable because I think partially it's also because the public is to be blamed, because I don't think that she is that stupid that she herself can't see the hypocrisy or the...
well, she doesn't care. They're in power. That's all they give a shit about. And they don't even want to be in power forever. They also don't want to be in power forever. They depend on complaining about Republicans sabotaging them when that's just cover. It's the same party.
Because and who's the most guilty party for doing this right now? Sadly, it's not the shit libs. I mean, he's a shit lib, but he's a closeted shit lib. It's Bernie. I mean, just look at his tweets recently. Every fucking tweet
I unfollowed him and blocked him like 100 years ago now.
Every tweet he puts out right now seems to completely focus on attacking the Republicans. Republican this, Republican that, Trump this, Trump that, and that's it. Whatever happened to the old Bernie, who was his own thing? And I mean,
well, we don't know. We don't know whether he was his own thing. He could have just been playing a part in the role.
Yeah, co-option is strong on that one because, and because when we were, I know we canceled the podcast many times because of how things were. But one of the words that was on my mind that I was going to open with, according to our old podcast segments, was baizuo. You ever heard of this word?
Which one? What's the word?
It's called baizuo.
I think you mentioned this to me a while back. It's like a Chinese word, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because these languages are very complex in terms that they can explain a lot of things in literally one word. And baizuo, pronounced baizuo, maybe. Okay, I don't know. Okay, it's a Chinese epithet that means a naive Western educated person who advocates for peace and equality, so far so good, only to satisfy their own feeling of moral superiority. A baizuo only cares about topics such as immigration, minorities, LGBT, and the environment, while being obsessed with political correctness to the extent that they import backward Islamic values for the sake of multiculturalism. The Chinese see a baizuo as an ignorant and arrogant Westerner who pities the rest of the world and thinks they are the saviors. Justin Trudeau's worldview is a low-resolution caricature of an adult worldview. Oh yeah, he's a total baizuo. And the reason why this is actually funny is because, and I'm going to tell you, because these shitlibs are actually the more of the baizuo today. Because if you actually see how they talk on Twitter or whatever, they're the ones who a lot of the time who keep using these intersectional talking points, like Google uses keywords, and it's so cringeworthy.
Especially this month. This month is their favorite time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here they come. Right. Pretty much. You're going to see that flag everywhere. So anyway, because this ties in with a lot of what we are actually talking about right now, because because co-option, because that's exactly what we're saying. Because did you get a chance to see that Abby Martin's video on how she talks about the Humans of CIA campaign, where CIA is promoting all these
woke CIA.
Intersectional woke CIA. My parents were lesbians and I was a woman of color from growing up in the projects, and today here I am with the CIA or
I'm putting other countries into projects.
Exactly. And they cover all the angles as well. And I know what you think. I know that. I understand all that. But here's the truth. In the end, we are all good because we care about the LGBT and the people of color and the women of color, and we know all that shit. And that's why it's important to have us inside the whole establishment as we go along, bombing people's because of going along prosecuting our own people for thought crimes and everything else. But the sad part is, okay, so this video is sort of like the Netanyahu of Israel. It's so obvious that it still needs time to refine.
Now it's just Netanyahu. He's out today.
Yeah, and we are going to talk about that. Today's I know a lot of people think it's a significant day because Netanyahu is ousted, but
rubbish.
I have mixed bags, and I'll explain to you why I think Netanyahu is in some ways better than the more subtle approaches Israel is going to take in the future. Okay, so these videos, obviously, right now, they have to turn the comments off and they have a massive like to declaration because people can still see, this is still cringeworthy. But but give them time. Give them time. They will work with the likes of Disney and all the big corporations and probably,
it is a fascist country, man. Come on. Corporations have to be involved.
Exactly, and that's the thing, right? Because and once again that ties in with what we are saying, big corporations. Because if you look at a lot of the big corporations, you got to see Siliconable. They had an article. Now that's multi-cloud. CIA awards multi-billion-dollar contracts to AWS, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, IBM. Well, what does that mean? I mean, basically, you see the same type of intersectional talking points that CIA does. You see the big corporations doing it, right? We started with the whole toxic masculinity thing for Gillette, but now it's sort of going overboard. Every company is doing it, and you CIA is sort of picking it up. So these companies are working together, and they're earning each other multi-billion dollars, and they're learning from each other how to tap into this whole baizuo culture. Baizuo, that's right. Yeah. So and most people don't have an issue with it, especially people who used to be sort of have somewhat of a genuine leftist position, but now sort of we are starting to see that they're closeted shitlibs. But and these people are okay with this, which is why every single time you see some leftists argue with the BoomerCon Trump tard, you see the leftists always. They're always attacking the independent media person. They're always attacking the podcasters. They're always on the side of Brian Stelter. Yeah, they're always on the side of the Democrats in every single argument.
You mentioned Brian Stelter. He did this interview with Jen Psaki the other day, and he's literally telling her, "What are we doing wrong? You just said, how are we offending you? This is like total 180 from Trump behavior. They pretend to be this like adversarial, where's my press pass, Jim Acosta nonsense, and now it's like, oh, how can we not offend you? Tell us, please tell us." And of course, she cut her teeth at the State Department doing propaganda there, so she was like, circling back like every 2 minutes. So.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to open your freaking interview, right? How can we not offend you? I mean, speak about how we are all on the same side and we just like to, rub each other out.
Well, they are on the same side. They're on the same evil side.
Yeah, God, yeah, I saw it and I was like, oh shit. I mean, you can't be serious. I mean, can it get more obvious than that?
They're trying this new tack where they'll just say the quiet part out loud because the average person, bro, this is a dumb country. I mean, I've seen PhDs running around with Washington Post mugs, man. Come on. I mean, it's just like nuts.
Yeah, because even with the PhDs, you started to say, I mean, did you see that? You see some of these university professors in Zoom meetings, or you saw that video of the classroom teacher yesterday tried attacking some student because he asked why he can't get a cupcake, fucking unicorn cupcake or whatever, and she goes all ape shit on the student, this child. I mean, this is what the problem is, that these are not so much oppressed people, because oppression is a whole different fucking word that these people don't fucking understand. This is not what oppression means. It's just that these people have had no way to annoy the rest of the world with their stupid opinions all their life, and suddenly they are in a position where they can they can just come and just be as psychotic as they want, and they know that it has some currency, and that's what's happening. And that's where you see all these academia people, they come out and they say all this ridiculous shit, like from math is racist to some kind of nonsense, or this kind of shit, because they know that they're just grifters in some ways. I mean, maybe not so much in making money, but they've noticed that they can be as psychotic and mentally unstable as they want, and there are people who they can not only divide society with this attitude, they also have power now, and that's what it is. It is just the mob mentality. It's the kind of shit that you see in Rwandan genocide or whatever, where people are causing chaos, but these people are doing it in a much more
we should thank Trump, man. He really, like, sort of, in a weird, inadvertent way, he's shone a light. Like, the years of Clinton look even worse now, because I mean, this is what Jimmy Dore always says. H.W. Bush was the better of the two evils. This guy, for as bad as he was, I mean, he was CIA director, man. He knows where all the freaking bodies are buried. But I think he was a greatest generation guy. Yeah, he got shot over the Pacific and stuff. Remember? And, I mean, he was better than his kid, and of course, I mean, like, but I still feel like, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but they still had some limits back then in terms of how far they're going to go. I mean, although Dick Cheney was his defense secretary. I just remember that. In fact,
Dick Cheney, there's another thing, I believe his name was James Baker.
So James Baker was the last guy to go after Israel, and they got rid of him for that. He literally was never allowed back in polite society when he did that. That was the last person to sort of, like, really openly tell Israel don't do settlements. And oh my God, the backlash he faced was just, like, insane.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, and I think we probably should talk about Netanyahu, right? So because that's the biggest media event that happened while we were away, which was the Gaza attack. We didn't get the chance to. We sort of didn't have a chance to make a podcast episode during this time. So here we are. So let's kick it off with the biggest event that happened during our absence. About the Gaza attack, which was, according to the Israel media, was in response to what the Hamas sending missiles.
But Hamas did that as response for Sheikh Jarrah, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, this is a very complicated situation, obviously, but the question is whether or not, so Hamas instigated this shit. They probably made their rockets, whatever, from the leftovers of what Israel.
Hey, listen, can you even blame? Listen, I don't care. A lot of people say that stuff, but these guys have been occupying. It's a European ethno-state implanted on Arab land. All right. Now, if they want to go back a million years when the Jews were there, then let's make some Native American here president, all right? We can all do that, right? Every continent can say, hey, Australia's got these Aborigines, like freaking, next prime minister. I mean, you can't go back. How far can you go back? There's always going to be someone who said, I was here first, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, these guys, I mean, they're little rockets. Now, I don't know if it's true. Max Blumenthal was saying that this Iron Dome is full of shit, right? It's just more PR than anything else, because it's very hard for rockets to intercept other rockets. And that does make some sense, but they keep saying, okay, like 1,000 rockets are fired and like 10 got in and killed like 5 people. You guys have been implanting yourself on this freaking land for 80 freaking years. You displaced like millions. I think when Israel was quote unquote formed, like 700, the first, what's it called, the first Nakba, right? Like when they had that first great displacement, when all the Palestinians had to go flying all over the place because they were kicked out, and like. I have no sympathy for people to do that. So if you're crying about your goddamn rockets, you're lucky it's just damn rockets. Imagine if they turn out to be like, they figure out, we'll just take a plane and ram it into like Tel Aviv airport. And what if you have stuff like that going on, I mean, where it's the way they are suffering. I'm surprised that hasn't even happened. I'm not advocating for that, but you know what I mean. Like you suppress people enough and soon people will start taking all kinds of chances to get back at you, not just throwing rockets in your face, which... these rockets are made out of nothing. And I think they were trying to nail the Hamas leaders into going into the tunnels. And they didn't fall for that trap because they were announcing that we're going to do a ground invasion like in 2014. They didn't do that. And the Hamas leadership is still around. So they didn't win any. They lost the political battle too. Eventually, even Grandpa Biden had to he took his own sweet time, the son of a bitch.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. Okay, so, all right. Let's just say, for example, Hamas. Now, they are not just a designated terrorist organization. They are immensely popular in the Gaza. They are a political representative of the Gazan people, right? I mean, they've been elected to the office time and time again. So they do this deliberately with the intention that Israel will retaliate, and they will retaliate in a massively disproportionate manner, targeting women and children and causing an enormous amount of damage to their own people. Don't you think something needs to be said about this group, that who is the political representative of this particular group of people who deliberately invite the enemy to attack your own people and see your own women and children being murdered, slaughtered or whatever, only to create a certain type of political optics? I mean,
but look at this. Look at it this way, right? I'm not advocating for them to do that either, right?
Yeah.
But if that's, I'm just saying that when that is not, the only time people talk about Israel and the stuff happening is when the shit goes on. If everything's peace and quiet, then the open air prison is just everyday Sim City, right? No one cares about Israel anymore. No one cares about any of the shit. It's only when Israel does this heavy-handed stuff. So from their point of view, I'm just playing their devil's advocate right now. There's no response internationally unless there's massacres going on, because people are, otherwise people are just they're just used to an actual atrocity happening. When I say atrocity, I mean a country that's taken over another land and just like doing whatever the hell they want, But it takes them to bombard buildings and stuff. And even that whole thing like, oh my God, the journalist, the building fell and stuff like that. Are you kidding me? They're crying over a building. What about the people, man? They've been dying for years.
But what's the end game? Let's just say, for example, Hamas does this and they eventually get their win, and they're
never going to get their win. They think they are. They won't get their win.
They get to become a government, right? Let's just say.
Well, I mean,
this is the same group of people who have invited their enemy to attack you at a disproportionate manner, and they become.
Don't forget, the enemy's attacking every day. It's just a degree of attack, right? I mean, every day there's something going on. It's a fucking occupation. It's like a fucking Warsaw ghetto, basically. Everyday life is like that over there.
But what happens when Hamas becomes a government and they have political representation?
I don't think they're going to be like a complete government, because they don't have the support of all the people because of this bullshit, right? You still have I forget what the Palestinian Authority is called now. There's another name for them. It used to be PLO, but now it's something else, right? With that, yeah. But
Arafat, that was under Arafat, right?
And he's the guy who did I think he's the one who did the Oslo Accords or something in '93. At that point, but don't forget when Israel when things were going in a way of like quote unquote peace, man, the Jewish guy killed the freaking prime minister. Remember '96?
Yeah, the Yitzhak Rabin. I remember because there was sort of because that's when we were getting our Star TV and CNN, and we were getting all
people
involved.
People are gonna say, "What the hell are you talking about Star TV?"
Yeah, it's right. I remember because that was such a big deal. I remember when they had like the Budweiser boxing and all Tuesday night boxing. Before the match, they would like have that 10-second count for Yitzhak Rabin. I was like, all right, fuck, this guy is such a big deal. I didn't realize it. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, like a Jewish guy, a student killed him, I think.
Yeah. So he was much more moderate compared to Netanyahu, right?
But this guy called Benny Gantz, I think, is a defense guy now. He's like a psycho. He makes Netanyahu look like a normal guy. and he's still in the fucking government. So it's most of Israel prime ministers have been Polish fuckers, man. Right?
Yeah.
Including this asshole.
Yeah, so this asshole, now he's on his way out, and he is in fact out now. But let's talk about this guy a little bit. Now, one of the concerns that I have is that these global Zionists have always in some ways they don't like what Netanyahu is doing because it makes their agenda looks way too obvious. You know, Netanyahu is one of those people who speaks the quiet part out loud. Now the reason why, that's one of the reasons why, especially the Democrat contingent in the United States have some level of they don't like Netanyahu because
well, he went after Obama, remember?
Yes, for the same reason they don't like Trump, because he's sort of doing things in a way that's way more obvious in terms of the foreign policy and everything. They just want someone who says all the right stuff.
Well, he said in an interview, they asked him, why do you do all this? He goes, because America has our back. He said it openly. He said the reason we do this shit is because we have support for the U.S. That's it. We didn't have
in a way, I've had some respect for Netanyahu for being actually knowing his place. At least during interviews, you'd never see him try to be like, you know what, we are the good guys or whatever. Look at us, listen to our arguments, this, that. Look at our this and that and that. You see a little bit of it, but it's with him. It's the raw deal. You know what I mean? He says it. He's out there. He doesn't try to be the nice guy. He doesn't try to appeal to people's emotions or whatever like that. He is what he is. I'm the devil incarnate. He has that type of attitude.
Yeah, but last I checked, we went to war in the 40s against the devil incarnate. We didn't just say, oh, let him be. He's cool. He's just speaking his mind, killing 6 million. It's all right.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. He's not. You never think of him as anything else when you see him, and that is the part that I do kind of think we are going to lose when we have another Joe Biden like leader being in Israel, because they're going to say all the right stuff to get all these baizuo. That's right, all these baizuos into their side, and that is something that will be lost with Netanyahu, because at least Netanyahu, we were able to look at this guy, go, oh, I hate this guy, I hate what he's doing. What's going to happen when you have a leader who's going to be doing exactly what he's doing, but he's a lot more likable.
Well, you won't believe this happened. I was when the whole Israel. So I did a couple of things. These things always make you, like, first of all, research a little bit more. And, I've always sort of like said, man, this Israel rabbit hole looks a little big, but I decided, let me jump in. And of course, I mean, the only reason Israel exists today is because the British and the French and all these people were busy courting all these Jews in the U.S., the rich Jews, right? Along with the German Zionists, right? For support in the war. Not German Zionists, just European Zionists, right? So, and they started this in World War I, right? Because they wanted to make sure that the financial support is along and all that stuff. And they basically said, you help us now and we'll make sure you have like something for you somewhere, right? You're going to get a homeland. And then I think at one point they were even offered like some land in Africa. I assume they would just like roll over Africans, and because you know how the European colonial powers treated Africa for like centuries. But Jews are like, no, we're not going to Africa, right? So they were like, we want to go back to like the freaking Old Testament town. And then the British carved that whole place up like after World War II. And I mean, it's just like the whole thing was these Palestinians didn't even have a choice. It's like the British and India, right? They drew these lines and it became 3 freaking countries, right? Or 2 countries and eventually 3. And I was reading some of this news stuff like about Biden and keeping quiet for a while, and you won't believe what NBC News was saying. They were basically propping up his complicity by saying that he's so great because he doesn't speak as openly as Trump to the people. That means he shuts the fuck up. So now being open with the public is like a bad thing. Because Trump would say whatever he wanted, right? And this is not good because Trump is doing it. It's just insane, man. Like the level of Trump derangement with like just even when it comes to all this stuff is insane. I mean, he's still around all the time. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's the world salad culture of the shitlips, because they are used to having leaders that gives them that leverage or the ability to write a whole word salad to explain their hypocrisy every turn of the way. And in order to facilitate that, you need the type of leaders who allows that type of ambiguity and that sort of subtle approach. And obviously, people like Netanyahu and Trump, they're just making their life very hard. So that's one of the reasons why they hate them, because they just speak the quiet part out loud all the time. Yeah, and they don't want that. They want people who tells you, oh, you know what, this is that part. I support this, that part, and then they talk about the LGBT or whatever and the women and everything in the next sentence. They want all that shit. That's just that's just the kind of ideal spokesperson they want.
It was pretty. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a total human catastrophe, and I mean, it just. I made it a point to see Abby's movie as well as Max's 2014. What was it called? Killing Gaza, right?
Yeah.
And Gaza
Killing
Fights.
Gaza.
Yeah, and
which she claims to be suppressed in YouTube, but I don't see any evidence.
Well, she said that you couldn't search for it, but I could. So but
I know.
It really depends. I mean, how you search for it. Like, I think if you're logged in, you'll see a different bunch of search results if you do it incognito. And also, a lot of things are in play, like your location, IP address. There's an algorithm for a reason. It just doesn't show everyone everything, right? I'm convinced that there's suppression going on. Like our last podcast was like utter garbage compared to our previous shows. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, how would that suddenly be like, a fifth of the previous views? I mean, we were improving every week, but I'm not. I mean, we maybe after 4 shows they figured out these guys are just mouthing off at the CIA all the time, and that's not a good thing. So.
Oh, well, especially for Americans, I do know that a lot of the time the Americans have a very different algorithm for the rest of the world. They don't care if the rest of the world have these dissenting voices but they do seem to have a huge hard-on when it comes to controlling the American people.
Well, this is Fortress America, right, for a reason. It's supposed to keep you fucking locked in.
Yeah. So speaking of Israel, I shared a couple of articles with you yesterday. Did you see one of them was about the whole New Zealand terrorist attack that took place in a mosque and the Israel connection? Because this guy, the New Zealand mass shooter, the Brenton Tarrant, the young lad from, I believe he's Australian. If you look at his activity before the actual mass shooting, this guy's been around the block. He's not just some stupid old bogan that went to New Zealand and shot up a mosque. This guy's been to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Israel, and a fuckload of countries before he actually appeared in this video. And this video in itself is really disturbing because he had a GoPro on and he was actually doing exactly what characters in video games do in terms of how they run around. Even the way he was breathing, breathing while he was running is very similar to that of what you see in video games. He was clearly playing a part, massive troll, but he also had a massive manifesto that he leaked to various officers. This is sort of synonymous. I mean, you can compare this to some of the previous terrorist attacks where Mossad is suspected to be a part of. But this guy was also friends with a lot of the. I think he was. There's also evidence that he was connected in many ways to the guy in Norway who shot up 70 people in an island. And these are, believe it or not, pro-Zionist white supremacists. Now I know people find it really hard because when you talk about white supremacists, the first thing the white supremacists hate are the Jews. But there is actually a fraction out there that does the exact opposite. Their whole issue is primarily with Muslim people, and these people are very pro-Zionist and pro-Israel. And there is evidence that this guy, Brenton Tarrant, not only had connections or some sort of a overlapping, aspirations with the guy in Norway, but he was also in many ways linked to the Mossad, and both these people, both their activities, everything, a lot of what they said in their manifesto are somehow related to Mossad globally. And I think it's worth reading this article. It's from the Mint Press.
Okay.
And I shared it in the Beyond Narrative Facebook page.
Okay.
But it's called New Zealand Terrorist Attacks, the Israel Connection by Mint Press. And it's written by... Let me just pull up the article. This is a very long form article, Max Perry, and it was written in 2019, so it's not a recent article, but definitely check it out if you get a chance, because this article also links once again to another article, which is where Israelis detained on September 11.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. You've seen that, right?
ABC
where
News,
Israelis detained on September 11 spies. Yeah, where this is another one that another guy, I think, this is a guy from very much the right-wing circle. I believe his name is Ryan Dawson. He often talks about the Israeli connection to the September 11 attacks. And I think in many ways there's a lot of people on the right, especially the ones who like to believe that 911 was an inside job. This sort of one of the reasons why this particular theory, it doesn't gain a lot of traction with this circle, is because it sort of foils the inside job narrative, in the sense that if you are to say that Israel is behind, in some ways Mossad is behind the 911 narrative, you kind of in some ways you have to distance the fact that it was a controlled demolition. So that's one of the reasons.
Well, that's the funny thing you mentioned that, because if you look at the insane backlash towards steering the COVID narrative, right?
Yeah.
Now it's plain to see that. I mean, come on, 911 was an inside job, was a toxic phrase for like 10 years, right? If you even mentioned those words, you were considered absolute kook, right? No one would look at you, no one would believe you, you're a crazy person, right? But go on to any 9/11 NIST video on YouTube now, any one of them, right? And more than 50% of the comments are all like, "This is a complete inside job." The thing is, like, that's the thing. When just with COVID, the same thing, like the lab leak theory. Like today, it showed. I saw an article today that says whatever, the HCl, the one that Trump was promoting. Hydrochloroquine. What's that word? I can't even pronounce that word.
Yeah, hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine, right? Yeah. That's now, they did a study, and 250 people in New Jersey were like cured or like from serious COVID symptoms with that, right? But it's just like if Trump said it, you couldn't say it. So the thing is, there's always a person, whether it's the CIA or these shitty Dems or McLibs or whatever, there's always some kind of narrative being pushed to achieve an end, and it's usually the furthest thing from the truth. Always. It's mainly done to push a narrative and to push an agenda, which has nothing to do with poor and working people. It's completely to do with empire and control and corporations. That's it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I saw that article you sent. Was Trump right about the hydroxychloroquine? You always sort of knew that from the way a lot of these news media and the shitlibs went about this hydroxychloroquine. It was so fake, and it had absolutely... It was more based on prejudice than anything else, and you could tell even the people who knew a lot about science, like the doctors and all, I could tell from the way they were arguing on social media, they were just writing whole word salads to not really address any of the facts, but just trying to fit this whole partisan narrative. And I always knew that there was something funny going on with it. I mean, they were not just giving scientific aid. They were really going out of the way just to suppress some very very common sense. It's the same thing with even sunlight or fucking vitamin D.
Don't forget Trump. I don't know if you know this, right?
Just a moment. Okay, let me just. Hey Google, stop. Hey Google, stop.
The CIA is listening, man.
Oh fuck! I know. Sorry about that, man.
No,
please,
I'm just saying like the CIA is listening. No, what I was trying to say is like, so Trump, I don't know if you know this, he's the first president in 100 years to not be a CFR president, right? Now, I've gone to the CFR. It's a complete inside, like whacked out foreign policy think tank that controls pretty much everything, right? They're the right wing version of the right wing Center for American Progress. right? So the thing is, this guy was not under their auspices. He was, because, they always considered him to be not part of the club, right? He's from Queens.
Yeah.
He's like a piece of shit, and he's always wanted to prove something. He's got a chip on his shoulder. But that's why there was such establishment backlash towards him. He wasn't controlled. Now he thought he was still controlled in a way. He had a huge billionaire donor, Sheldon Adelson, who's now thankfully dead. That guy, I think he gave him $100 million or something like that for his campaign. I forget.
Yeah.
And so he did have people he was answering to, but he wasn't part of the actual elite Tony Blinken jet set crowd. And so anything he says is considered completely toxic. That's how the media ran with it. So, like I said, when I was talking to the other person just 2 days ago, like, Trump is so bad. Like, that, people who don't know anything, like, they managed to permeate this thought into, like, the lowest common denominator in America or the world. So that's where we are. Now, of course, he's a fucking idiot. But, I mean, the thing is, I don't know if I told another friend of mine today, I'm not for Trump at all. And the worst part is we have to keep saying that. Like, it's like, please excuse me, I don't really like Trump. Like, it seems to, we spoke about this in one of our earlier episodes where you literally are, like, almost guilty and you have to say you're not for Trump before you actually say what you want to say. But I still feel having the wolf in charge is better than having a fox in charge, right? At least with this guy, you can see him coming from a mile away. With these freaking McLib Dems, you just don't, they're always, Kamala Harris. Don't forget, the Wall Street won twice because they were invested in her. A person who didn't even get one electoral vote. But they got 2 for 1. They got the grandpa and her. Now, when he dies, she's going to just get in there and be there for 8 years. Imagine someone who couldn't even get one electoral vote will be president for, effectively 12 years. So she's just going to be like FDR. She does share the internment camps with him, so.
Anyway, yeah, absolutely, because at the end of the day, I would absolutely love to see a level of transparency in these type of situations, which unfortunately you will never get with Democrats because they're just way too sophisticated.
I don't think we'll get it with anybody.
Their media.
I think the government and at least I think the blob, as you call it, is taking over everything. I don't think even if Bernie got in, I think the same shit would happen.
Oh, it could be probably worse, man. I mean, fuck, I can't stand that guy anymore. I mean, he has become. I mean, one of the reasons why we are seeing these people, organizations like the CIA, doing all these Psyops to, appeal to the baizuo culture is because people like Bernie and AOC have loved it. I mean, they are quite okay to see people, half the nation being prosecuted for thought crimes. They're quite okay to see every kind of, like a surveillance state expanding to whatever.
Funding cops to the tune of $2 billion.
Exactly. They're quite okay to see people who criticize them on Twitter being intimidated by state troopers.
Well, not just that. They were like, I think the FBI still go around the country arresting people who are just floating around the Capitol, because you're like a bat. They've literally, the PsyOp has been so successful that they've literally been able to paint half the country as just like the enemy. This is literally what they wanted. Fucking insane.
Classic. Very.
I mean, like, now you just got to be parrot. It's like North Korea. You just got to parrot whatever they want to say. If you don't, you're a bad person. It's the same thing about, just a very quick aside, like this whole, our employees worked for a year and a half and they're excellent. They worked remote work to save our company. But now if you don't come back to the office, you're a bad person.
Anyway, before another thing we need to catch up that we missed during this time of absence was Bitcoin. You got any thoughts on it? Yeah.
Well, apparently Elon said something, right, and it went crashing down. I think they're just trying to. They were never going to go for it because it's decentralized, man. That's like the kryptonite word for the establishment.
Yeah, because I saw the first ever. The sign of this trajectory, I first saw Elizabeth Warren. She put out, I think, a tweet or a statement. And I thought it was an Onion article because it just had that absurdity.
She is an Onion article.
yeah, she is a living Onion article. Yeah. So, it's about how she said that, she can't support Bitcoin because Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment. And then, of course, then came the big one, which was Elon. She He backstabbed.
Oh, he finally discovered what his lithium batteries don't cause any pollution at all. The mining required to get that from the ground.
Exactly, and I think a lot of what he said absolutely plummeted the Bitcoin pricing. It was in many ways it was he backstabbed a lot of his. Because I used to be, and many people like me, we were massive Elon apologists. We sort of let this guy off the hook with a lot of
he's a billionaire,
things
bro.
he did and said. But at the end of the day, there were people who lost their life savings. I mean, $10,000. I know one guy. His life saving was which is nothing to Elon, but he placed his faith on Elon Musk's tweets, and
that was his first mistake.
He lost his life savings, and a lot of people, a lot of these tech bros or guys who are very committed to this cause, they used to be big Elon Musk fans. I think a lot of them were like, oh, fuck this guy. And this was the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I can see also now there are certain countries like El Salvador, so they have made Bitcoin a serious like a currency. So
I invested in this meme coin like 3 months ago. I got rid of it when it was at the top.
Oh, okay.
I remember Dogecoin or whatever that thing was called.
So you got your money.
Well, I made like $150, but I invested like $5.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad. If I put in like 50,000, you'd be like a millionaire or something.
So it will be the Bitcoin would probably be the next boogeyman that they're going to go after in terms of toppling regimes or arresting people. I can already see that articles.
Oh, terrorism, right? You're a terrorist.
So when you want to paint someone as a terrorist, or when you want to paint someone in negative light, you'll also mention their Bitcoin investments as well on the side. You just put it out there, just so people think, if you're a mass shooter or if you're a terrorist, you might have had some sort of connection to the Bitcoin. And there you go. That they got their foot in the door to planting that seed in your head. So it's already happening.
Don't forget that Bitcoins are actually one of the few real coins, right? Like this meme coin was garbage. There's a lot of bullshit coins out there. But Bitcoin was like actual real coin. And this Elon is just, people misconceptualize what a company can do and try to implant that on the person, right? Look at Bill Gates. The guy's freaking whole life is falling apart. I'm so happy because he's a freaking douchebag. The guy was a persona non grata in 2000. Remember, people used to throw pies in his face? And now,
I remember 90s, right?
For 20 years, he's been like on this rehab tour, but now it's come out that he was trying to nail people in his office, and he'd go in like a sedan and come out in a Porsche with the pretty young thing on his side. And I think his wife finally got pissed when Jeffrey Epstein ended up in his buddy list.
It never ceases to amaze me with these rich people. Why do they stay married for this fucking long? It's just it makes. I mean, like,
one is tax, obviously.
That's the thing, though. It's like if you make once you make your first billion, you should know what you're worth in the market out there, right? But
he still couldn't get it. He was a billionaire and he still couldn't score. He's like the guy we knew in high school.
Melinda Gates was a
remember the guy we knew in high school, that white skinny dude. He's made a lot of money and he's just like another Bill Gates. He ended up going on some Indian like website matrimonial trolling site because he couldn't get a single girl to go out with him. The guy was minting all kinds of money. So it's not possible sometimes.
It never makes any sense to me why they stay married for 30, 40 years after they become.
She actually worked for him. She was working for him. This is a guy who's going after people in his office to get his wife. Like, she was working under him. This is like complete power dynamic Monica Lewinsky bullshit. And eventually she got pissed that Epstein was around. I mean, what's he doing with Epstein? He's the richest guy. At that point, he was the richest guy in the world. He can get money from any bank. He doesn't need to go to this private equity dude.
It is funny though. You see these divorces and you suddenly see people having an opinion about it as if she was some kind of a hero and he was some kind of a bad dude.
Assholes,
I saw some article where she was saying that she gets to have like 30 billion, or I don't know, she gets to have a fuckload of money, and some male feminist gets triggered and say, this is painted in such a negative way, he wouldn't be nothing without. I'm like, Are you fucking serious? These guys are billionaires long before they decide to. I mean, the only reason he probably married her over somebody else was because he probably didn't want to end up marrying some guy with a beard.
Or it could be that she's the only one who showed interest in him.
Yeah, so she was probably the best looking option for him in the office, you know? Get yourself together, guys. Have some reality perspective. These guys are fucking geniuses.
I think I sent you a picture of him and her, right? They're looking kind of ghoulish and creepy. I mean, you know, it was a little nuts, man. But I just want to end with one thing over here, and really quickly.
Actually, one more thing we need to touch before we end is Young Turks. We got to talk about this before we end because I think that this is another thing. So what has happened to the Young Turks in the last 5 weeks?
Well, they've been falling apart, right?
Not only that, but we are starting to see Cenk Uygur sounding more and more like Donald Trump in terms of his numbers.
Yeah, he's been calling the left the loony left. He sounds like Trump. He's like a brown Trump.
Remember, see the tweet where he said, "Thank you for the opportunity to tell you that TYT had 40 million hours of viewing last month. Not minutes, hours. The reason we are attacked non-stop by liars on all sides is because we are by far the biggest progressive network. Haters gonna hate everything. Everyone else watch TYT." I mean, this is a classic Trump tweet. You know what I mean?
Like he's trying to compensate, right? I mean, if you're doing 40 million, whatever. I mean, it's like saying, you know, like, do you have to even like? This is like reeks of desperation, if you ask me.
Literally eventually they are going to stop this disliking because literally everything they ever put out has a massive likes to dislike ratio. And I mean that's probably why he can boast about the viewers, because people who view them, they don't actually view it. They just go there to put a dislike on it.
Well, not just that. I was on a couple of their live streams just to see what they were doing, and I didn't see more than 5,000 at any given point in time. Right, that was the max. Don't forget that 5,000 people are waiting for a Jimmy Dore live stream to start, usually in the waiting room, right? Now, I was surprised to see that now the war is real between these two guys, but that brings me back to one more thing. I don't know if you've noticed this. I've seen a lot of these YouTube celebrities and personalities, right? Most of their shows are now becoming into attacking each other first, right? Yeah. Oh, you don't like me, he said something, let's have a show about it, and you tell us what happened. Now, of course, I respect Aaron Mate actually going to Syria to do the reporting, but there's been two other women who've been there way before him, right? Yeah. They've actually come on Jimmy's show before.
But didn't Tulsi go there as well, and no one ever talks about that?
Oh, Tulsi went and met Assad, right? She's a dictator's puppet.
She loves dictators.
And the thing is, when Aaron Mate was talking about Syria being a police state, and you know what? It's how you do the police state, right? Now, don't forget, we lived in a police state, right? Back in the day, right? Yeah. Now, even though we lived in a police state, I mean, we were pretty much doing whatever we wanted most of the time, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we were stopped from doing, I mean, you know, you can't do elections and stuff like that. But, I mean, look at this place. It does elections horrible. But what I mean to say is that I think this place has perfected being a police state with the impression of that it's free. It's not a free country at all. But as long as you have your iPhone, you've got your internet, and you've got some, thankfully now canceled what's her name? Chrissy Teigen. Oh man, I'm so glad she's gone. But she was horrible. She was going after like a non-binary person, like telling them to die and stuff. But she's totally canceled now. I'm so happy. But I just want to. This was really funny. I had to talk about this. Was that and so you remember Eric Swalwell? The guy who ran for president, right?
Fartgate,
yeah, that guy and Adam Schiff, right? These two guys are complaining about Trump going after them in DOJ. There was some kind of Trump went after their phone records and stuff like that, and it just came out. These two guys are the biggest spy advocates of all time. They want everyone to be under surveillance. They want no freedom for anything.
Mossad t-shirt. His kid used to wear Mossad t-shirts. Remember in photo ops?
Yeah. But now he's crying about the fact that Trump went after them, right? And oh my God, he's so out of control and this, that, and the other. But the thing is, these guys are freaking terrible, and even Feinstein, right? She's been for CIA spying and everything else, and then John Brennan spied on CIA. So it's just they make such a big only they want us all to be under surveillance. But if it happens to them, like the better people that they are, then it's a huge problem. But if the serfs like us get spied on, it's all good.
Oh yeah, I saw it because two Californian Democrats joined the long list of politicians who enable spying on ordinary citizens.
Yeah.
Then angrily object when they themselves are being targeted. Glenn Greenwald.
And the thing is, honestly, like I saw all this happening. That don't forget, I was in New York when 9/11 happened. My brother was in the building, right? And you know, every country that is under the boot of U.S. interference or anything like that is pretty much going through a 9/11 like every few weeks. You know, I mean, people are dying left and right, and because they're brown and give a shit. Over here, we hold our heads high and do the whole police crap on 9/11 because 9/11 is like a marketing slogan now, man. I mean, there's a fucking fee on the plane ticket that's called a 9/11 fee. Are you kidding me?
Really?
You know? Yeah,
wow.
of course. Yeah. Like my ticket would be $5 cheaper if I don't have to pay that goddamn fee.
Wow.
So it's just like, you know, they. I mean, just as maybe FDR did the same thing, he used a Japanese attack to get into the war. So, you know, there's always some, you know, like you were talking about Hamas trying to do the whole thing about Israel and Hamas doing the body count to get sympathy. I mean, what the hell do we do? We do the same thing here.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just seeing that, I was just like, but I've also noticed that when it comes to imperialism, spying, all this bullshit, most of the supposed left, quote unquote, liberal, McLib, whatever you want to call it, they're all for this. This is way above their pay grade. They can't even fathom the kind of shit that's going on. To them, it's all about, let's rush to the airport, Trump stopping people, or it's LGBTQ month, and this, that, and the other, and, you know, whatever. Trump's bad. I mean, it just stops right there. AOC is the greatest, even though she's funding cops. You know, a few people see through that, but not enough. And you know, last summer we had this whole movement about people. You know, it really seemed like something was it was like a turning point. We have like, I think, a month more to go here before the eviction moratorium ends, right? Millions are going to get kicked out of their fucking houses, but I don't see anyone on the street doing fucking protests for that. There's always protests for the wrong fucking reasons, right? Like even the George Floyd protests became like a fucking mob. Like, there was so much bullshit going on that it became hard to convince, like, people who would... I know some right-wingers who would literally be for, like, okay, if a cop shoots people, it's not a good thing. But then when they see people going apeshit and breaking into stores and, like, you know, average, like, hooliganism, and then they just... You just can't get them on board.
Because they were attacking the small business people, and a lot of the time who they were hurting with the small businesses and the poor people. They were not really hurting the big companies, which makes them to believe that whose side are you on? What's you know, your whole actions are beneficial to the greater agenda, like to the long-term agendas of the absolute elite and the elitists of the elitists. So that's why a lot of the people on the right were questioning it, because you never saw them going and burning banks or anything like that, right? They were just burning all the a lot of the time they were hurting their own black communities. These white people going to black communities and burning down black stores, looting areas where there's black people. You know, they rely on this infrastructure, and they were doing that. So it's almost like you know, if the KKK wanted to orchestrate some sort of a Psyop and make and blame the other side, this would have been like the perfect way to do it. So I mean,
and it's just a total, like, I mean, all these corporations got into like painting Black Lives Matter on the street. Let's do a fucking logo here. It's the same thing, just like you talk about intersectional bullshit. Like they went the same thing. They co-opted the BLM leader with the fucking 4 houses, and you know, just fucking nothing, man. It's like a complete. Co-option seems to be like everywhere. Like something starts, it'll be co-opted within minutes.
On the topic of co-option, you can see the BLM co-option of BLM to the Democrat Party is now complete because, I don't know, I don't know if you saw it, but there were like 7 BLM demands, which makes them look like total stooges to the coastal elites.
I saw that. It was stupid.
Okay, BLM 7 demands. 1, convict and ban Trump from future.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that being the first fucking thing of BLM. I mean,
BLM,
the guy's a fucking orange clown. He's like not even relevant anymore. This just shows you. That's what I'm still trying to figure out what makes him such a fucking activator of the reptile brain. Like, you know,
Trump said the greatest thing that any black person should be able to, like, say here, and which is what have you got to lose? I mean, think about that for a moment. I mean, that is the most sort of, like the most incredible thing you can ever tell to an African American living in the United States. I mean, it's so true. It's the most purely unadulterated kind of appeal you can ever give to a black person as a candidate. So. Yeah, and number 2, expel the Republican members from the Congress who attempted
normal.
to overturn the election.
Oh, yeah.
These are BLM demands. I mean, come on. Launch a full investigation into the ties between white supremacy and the Capitol Police, the law enforcement and the military. Permanently ban Trump from digital media platforms. Defund the police. Don't let the coup be used as an excuse to crack down on our movement.
That wasn't a fucking coup. The fact that they call it a coup or an insurrection, anyone who says that, I'm just telling you, brains pickled with Trump derangement syndrome. Sorry.
I mean, these are BLM demands. Come on. I mean,
it fits the narrative. They got more than 70% of the country on board, 75, at least 65% of them. So,
These fat, fucking loud, obnoxious.
There used to be people I used to work with fucking Obama posters. I mean, what is this, Kim Jong-un ill time? I mean, seriously, who keeps a fucking poster of a president in the fucking office, man? The worship is crazy on both sides. You have these Trumpers who are like fucking, you think about it, the very first, storming of the Capitol, quote unquote, where they were like let in by the cops, right? But the very first quote unquote storming was about a fucking orange dude when it should have been about Medicare for all, help us with the not being evicted from our house, fucking fund the goddamn schools, make sure all our fucking problems go away. No, let's fucking... And the worst part is, these shitlibs and micklibs saw that happening, and they now know that anyone who does that is branded an enemy of the state. So if you come and invade the Capitol again on actual demands, because we don't work for you, you're going to be a terrorist. End of story. You can't even do that anymore.
And you only have to look at some of this BNM, like the woman you said with 4 houses. My God, I mean, if you think that these people are not corruptible, she is an epitome of what you call like those typical example of civil rights leaders who go on to become whales and become so corrupt.
And she wanted to live in a white neighborhood. Oh my God, that was the worst part for me. I was like, fine, you're a little grifter taking the money and trying to get your little nest egg illegally and like be a little corrupt shit. But now you want to live with white people?
She's a classic example of the type of characters you see in TV shows like The Wire. Like their mayor, the one who goes, shit, you know what I mean? Like, that's her. In reality, I mean, this is why these type of people are the founders or considered as leaders, because they are very easy to have people like this to co-opt these
and
type
the shitlibs will go to any extent to like sort of I mean, if you thought right-wingers are crazy, AOC crying about her abuela like living in squalor and poverty in Puerto Rico because of Trump, right? So a right-winger fucking did a fundraiser where he raised $100,000 for her, and then they were like, oh, his grandmother won't accept the money. Well, motherfucker, why don't you, if you don't want the money, why don't you just give it to somebody else in fucking Puerto Rico, man? Yeah. But
exactly.
So they'll cut off their nose to spite their face, basically. And maybe the right winger did it to just basically expose them, but he still raised $100,000, right? And then the GoFundMe people told him that they don't want to accept the money, so now we're going to refund everybody back. So now $100,000 just went to waste. People are willing to give $100,000 to help this woman. She could have just taken the money and given it to whoever she wanted. So
you can't have that, because that would give too much credit to the right wingers. I mean. You don't want to make right-wingers look like they're people who can get things done.
Don't forget Cori Bush. When she got in, she had the fucking second day on the job. She had the goddamn legislation ready. We want to make sure we can get rid of anyone who supported, if you even voice support for any Trumper entering the Congress building, you're like a bad person and we're going to get rid of you in a very undemocratic way. I mean...
Oh, tell me she's not corruptible. You only have to look at that face and you can tell that.
No, she's complete. They're all fucking.
Grifters and gatekeepers, and they're just there to.
They were able to force the vote for the funding of the cops. They all did it so that it passed by one vote. But they couldn't do it for AOC and all these people when actual force the vote is happening in January, when they could have done the same thing to make sure Pelosi doesn't become speaker. She doesn't do Medicare for all for a House vote. And, man, Jimmy just, he blew up because of that. And they're still throttling him. He's still at 868,000 or something. He hasn't even gone 1K subscribers in 3 months. Poor guy. I mean, he's not poor.
I believe Jimmy had a really good word for people like AOC and the squad. He called them the performative radicalism. What that means is that, these are people who hit all the platitudes, who have all the intersectional talking points, all the keywords, they are like the Google keyword generator when they talk. But, you can have some platitude tweets and then you can say all that shit. But when push comes to shove, they will make sure that everything passes by one vote or something like that. Tell me that these things aren't planned in advance, You
remember I went to the Bernie rally last 2 years ago, 2019? Remember when you said, I'm back, my heart attack's over, and I'm in the house? So she gave a speech there, right? And when she started talking, that's when I realized this is all bullshit. These people suck. And I started focusing on my technical aspects of shooting the video. But it was... That's when I was able to see through this shit in 2019. I was like, this is another grift he's running and she's full of shit and they're not going to do anything. I mean, it was just a gut feeling and I'm really going with my gut feelings. They've helped me out in the last few years.
Anyway, before we end it, you're from India. Where does India stand in the Arab-Israel conflict?
Oh, so what I heard from people in India were that it was weird. I had a friend of mine text me. He goes, guess what, bro? So India supports Israel and Kashmir supports the Palestinians, so Israel must be right because of that. You do realize that Kashmir actually needs to be independent, right, you moron?
I saw this guy put out a troll tweet just to sort of mock the India-Israel relationship. He goes, India, we stand with Israel. Forever, brother, nation. I love Israel, an Israeli girl. I die Israel, Miami.
Right. I saw that.
And he goes on and doing the whole Bob and Vajna thing and just loving Israel. It is hilarious. Yeah, so...
and I think some Indian got killed, actually, during that whole thing. So I also got a text the same person. He goes, look, an Indian got killed. I was like... She was basically one of those domestic maids sent to the Middle East. And I was like, man, that's the horrible thing in the first place, that this country is relegated to sending goddamn maids to these fucking other places who just exploit them. I know, they keep saying, they get paid more than they do in their own country. That's because they can afford to pay more, but they're still exploiting them. They're not paying them an actual livable wage, right?
Yeah, man, there was a girl from Sri Lanka. She was underage when they sent her to Saudi Arabia. And for some reason, she was not qualified to do the job or whatever, but she was also, I think they lied her age to get her the passport. This is from a very poor area in Sri Lanka. She goes to Saudi Arabia. She was given the task of feeding a baby, and apparently the baby died, and they accused her of killing the baby, choking over her, which she denies. She says that, I don't know, there's a lot of mixed story, but anyway, they end up beheading her after, keeping her arrested for 5 years or whatever. So they beheaded her for something she did when she was a kid, essentially. And also, there is no way for her to defend herself. Even, let's just say, for example, if the baby didn't die, or if the baby died in your care, it's literally not murder, not in my opinion, especially if you're not a professional baby, you're not trained in this industry. Or it could be that the mother killed the baby. I mean, these fucking women are crazy in these rich families, especially in those parts of the world. Anyway, there's a video I think on YouTube where you can actually watch from far away of this girl being beheaded. And
look at the bright side. I'm not one to defend the crazy autocratic regimes like Saudi Arabia, but she did live for 5 more years before she got beheaded. George Floyd lived for 10 minutes. So how's this place any better than Saudi Arabia?
That is absolutely true as well. I mean,
she was fed, put in a prison for 5 years, right? Whatever. I know it's not fair and all that stuff, but the fact that this country doesn't let you live for like 5 minutes.
It's not the same thing. I mean, we got to appreciate, we got to go beyond that narrative. It's not the same as Saudi Arabia, though. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm talking about these. The thing is, what I'm trying to say is, like, to be better than Saudi Arabia, you should never have a situation like a George Floyd or anything like that happening first before you can, the reason it's happening there, first of all, is based on that insane Sharia law, right? So they do their own thing. But on the other hand, like, hey, it's its own country. Like, I mean, are we going to go around the whole fucking planet, like, trying to change the way people live?
But cops around the world are violent like this. You know what I mean? Like, we only see it in the United States, but let's not forget that cops in India or cops in Sri Lanka,
badge syndrome, right?
better. They're fucking
what do you have?
spastic. They're psychos. Yeah. So that there is something, but I think there was another woman who came to Sri Lanka. Like, this case is about 3 or 4 years old now. And her whole body had, like, I don't know, fucking covered in nails. Like, they had X-rays and they found like all these nails all over her body and all. And she was a maid in Saudi Arabia, and this is just how she was treated while she was there. And she was coming back. She could barely walk when she came back to Sri Lanka. And there are so many cases like this.
But again, just to play devil's advocate, these people went to Saudi Arabia and then they got mistreated. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't forget, when the U.S. went to Vietnam, they sent the little kids out into the fields to, like, find where the mines were, right? So in this case, the U.S. comes to you. It's the same damn thing. I'm just saying that it's just really terrible that supposed liberal democracies are, like, doing the same things as these autocratic, insane joints. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Vietnam. That's another whole thing we can talk about someday. Everything that happened because of it, or everything that happened in Cambodia because of it. Yeah, we should.
That's a secret.
We should dedicate an episode to it sometime.
Yeah, light up a candle for Nixon. The guy died here across the river from me. He died in New Jersey.
He was a genius. Let's not forget it. But I mean, he's a genius compared to a lot of the presidents that have appeared since.
He got caught, man. He's not much of a genius. He got caught. Most of these guys are not. Well, you know what? He got caught at a time when. Don't forget the reason Watergate happened. It's the same reason Trump got impeached, right? This impeachment shit only happens when one party gets slighted by the other party. If anything real happens, where like a president will go and kill, secretly bomb a country or anything like that, I don't know. It's all good. But the only reason Watergate and Trump and Clinton impeachments happen is because one party got slighted. That's it. It's just like fucking turf war between these idiots. They don't give a shit about people at all.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of really that whole Watergate thing really did. I think it was a cover-up that caused more controversy than the actual act in itself. I think
that's always the case, right?
That's always the case, isn't it? So, but Richard Nixon, he opened trade relations with China. He also had a lot of environmental policies that he passed. That
he was scared. He was scared of he did the EPA, and I think they were actually scared of Ralph Nader back then. A consumer advocate had put fear into these people, and now it's just like to quote the great AOC, like the left has no power in this country at all. It's completely there's no left. It's a right-wing insane joint, and as long as you got your iPhone and your fucking Facebook, Instagram nonsense going on, you're all right.
Yeah, and you got your renewable energy. Whatever you believe that you're doing something, as long as you drive a electric car and
right. It's all co-opted. That's co-opted too. Don't forget, like Planet of the Humans showed us, right?
Oh my God, yeah, and the sad part is there's another classic example of shit library, because Michael Moore, he got cancelled left, right, and center, but that hasn't stopped him from being the biggest shit lib of all. I mean, he's still doing it because there's money in it. The dude has $45 million. I mean, he doesn't want to stop grifting off people. So even though he got his show cancelled, he experienced the whole fascism firsthand. He still keeps going with all the fucking lies and divisive nonsense, instead of actually addressing the real issues.
That Trump derangement is real, man. I mean, we need to just like how we found out AOC is like incubated in a lab. You need to really find out, like, some psychologist somewhere or some kind of fucking behavioral studies person was, sort of like hired by the DNC, just like Christopher Steele, to sort of like figure out this. All right, you know what? We're gonna just implant this reptile nonsense into people's brain, and we'll grift off that for the next 10 years, and that's what's happening. I mean, it's really the opposite of Obama, if you think about it. I guess we're back, and we're not doing any more 80s intros out here. We're just going to, like, get straight into it, and,
We're going to have fun. We're going to have fun talking to each other, and being as normal as and human and imperfect as we want to be. That's
exactly.
It.
But, all right, man. So we will see you guys next week, and take care. See you guys later.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.